I never buy pieces like this. I don't know the manufacturer. I don't know when it was made, although I think it's probably pre 1950s. It's in terrible condition, like awful. The finish is just, oh, and it's filthy. So filthy. It was a total impulse buy. It was really close by. It was cheap, and I bought it.
I'm Amy. I build and revive furniture, often adding something new to something old. I'm sharing tips, tricks, and methods on how to give old pieces a new lease on life. Welcome to my shop.
So you can see I cheated and took off a little bit of the old finish here. I wanted to make sure this veneer was real. Sometimes this can be like a totally like faux finish. I've gotten fooled before, so wanted to make sure this was real. I don't know what kind of wood this is yet. I don't know if I'll be able to figure it out, but there's only 2 original pulls on this piece. The rest of them are like very cheap replacements. So that's definitely going to get replaced. The thing about stripping the whole thing down is I'm not sure that I'm going to get my time and effort back in the sale price. A piece like this isn't going to sell for a lot, so I have to be really careful with how much time I'm going to be investing in this. The guy I bought it from, he was not the original owner or had any information about it. He's somebody that buys repossessed storage units, which I thought was really interesting. Basically, somebody stops paying the bill for their storage unit, the storage unit locks them out, repossesses, the unit and its contents, and then they kind of auction it off or sell it to people like him, and he goes in, salvages what he can. So that's where this dresser came from. This top is in pretty rough condition. There is a lot going on here. You've got a new finish. You can tell that's not the original finish, but it's cracking, and there's a lot of spots. I don't know what that is at all, but this top is in really rough shape. The bummer about it is you can see the same pretty wood grain that's on the drawer fronts. You can see that is visible here on the top. So now that I've got it vacuumed out, I'm gonna go ahead and clean it. I love Crud Cutter. It's really, really strong, so don't let it anywhere near your finished furniture, but I love this product. I've used quite a few, and this one, in my opinion, is the best. And definitely gonna have to wear gloves, and I've got a bucket of just clean hot water, and I'm going to wipe all this down. Give it a good scrubbing because this is really dirty. I'm going to give this a really, really good scrubbing. I want to see how much of the old finish will actually come off, or will it just be like dirt and grime. A clean hot rag and wipe off all that residue. You can go about removing an old finish from veneer a few different ways. In my opinion, it depends on the condition of the finish. If it's pretty far gone, you can use a carbide scraper like this, and it can be pretty quick work. If the finish is pretty well intact, I always use a chemical stripper. I don't recommend going right to sanding, especially for veneers. It's really easy to burn through a thin veneer with an electric sander. I say this every time, but do not be stingy with the stripper. So Clean Strip, the stripper I used, is water-based, so you actually can use water to wipe off all the residue. You can also use acetone. I have used that in the past when there's been a lot of residue or there's just some really stubborn spots. But this came up pretty nicely and easily, so I'm just fine with using, I use hot water. I just think it is, I don't know, it just works a little bit better. I suppose you can use, just water out of the hose, but I go in the kitchen and get hot water, and it tends to, I don't know, I think it works a little bit better. But after I wipe everything down and it completely dries, then it's going to be ready for any sanding that I want to do. I'm loving what I'm seeing so far, except for around the hardware holes. The veneer is in really good shape, but I won't be able to sand those dents out, or I'd probably burn through the veneer. So I'm probably going to find a knob that has some kind of a back plate on it. The old finish was cracking on this whole entire side, so I can't get away with a scuff sand to get it ready for primer and paint. To do it right, it has to be removed completely or the paint won't adhere properly. Even though I'm probably painting most of the dresser, as I said, except for the drawer fronts, I'm still having to go down to the raw wood because you can see like there's a drip mark there. You can just see this isn't the original finish. This is, I think, when they must have given it a refinish, but it's just really, really, really rough, and just scuff sanding it isn't gonna level this out and make it nice and smooth. So I am having to go down to the raw wood in most parts and places. Even though I'm just gonna be painting over most of it, I still think that that is gonna be worth all the work because it'll mean a nice smooth finish. By the way, this is bookmatched walnut veneer. Oh, so pretty. Anyway, I'm sanding in the direction of the grain, which is tricky when I get to that middle seam. So for the other drawers, I used a piece of blue painter's tape right along the seam. The insides of the drawers were pretty bad, so I had to sand the whole insides too. What you're looking at here are sanding swirls or swirl marks. Very common whenever you're using an electric sander, happens all the time. But before you move on to the next steps, whether it's primer and paint or stain or clear coat, you absolutely need to sand those out, especially if you're staining. Stain will really bring out the swirl marks. They will be extremely obvious. The stain will settle into all these little spots and it'll just look terrible. Ask me how I know. But sometimes they can be really hard to see. So the best way I know how to find swirl marks before I move on to the next step. So what I do is I dim the lights in my shop and I take a flashlight and I run it along the piece. And what that will do is that will show me any spots where the surface of the wood has some unevenness. And in this case, it'll show me where all of the swirl marks are. My go-to primer is Zinsser Bin Shellac because it blocks everything. Odors, tan and bleed through, it really is foolproof. But I don't want to use it under a dark color like this unless I absolutely have to. My Sherwin-Williams guy told me that for something like this, a dark chalk paint would work just fine as a primer. And I happen to have some on hand. I am sanding the primer coat with a fine grit. This will make the paint coats go on really, really smooth. You might be wondering, well, if you're using chalk paint, why don't you just use that as your main paint? Well, unfortunately, I have become extremely spoiled by Sherwin-Williams Gallery Series paint. It sprays so beautifully. I don't have to thin it. It has a built-in hardener, so it dries super quick, and it is just so smooth. I really don't want to use anything else. Plus, the chalk paint has to be sealed in with a clear coat, and the Gallery Series paint doesn't need a top coat. This color is called Tricorn Black, and I'll do at least 2 coats. I won't need to sand in between coats unless I mess something up, which I didn't do this time, so yay. This is a tinted top coat that I had left over from my last project. It's General Finishes dye stain in the color medium brown, and it's diluted in satin polyurethane, all water-based. The reason I use a patchwork of newspaper here instead of plastic is because paint will flake off of plastic really easily, especially with the air from my spray gun. And those flakes can get into a fresh coat of paint. Newspaper works a lot better, there's no flaking. This poor dresser, it was absolutely filthy, had probably been sitting in a storage unit for who knows how long. It had been refinished, but there were drip marks and cracking in the finish. All but 2 of the original drawer pulls were missing. But here's how it looks now. So I know a lot of mid-century enthusiasts would disagree with me about using paint on a piece like this, but I really wanted to feature the best part of this piece, which was that gorgeous book-matched walnut veneer. But what do you think? Is this the direction you would have taken this piece? Oh, by the way, it's sold freakishly fast in my retail space. So it's already in its new home. How great is that? I'm already working on my next video, so make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching, and thanks for all the feedback and questions you leave me in the comments. I'll see you again soon.